Hello DevOps people, welcome to Full Stack Live, my live coding stream. I'm happy to have you here. It's Saturday afternoon, the sun is shining over Ireland and my house, and the peace of a running TV has come over this house, and it's just serene. Yeah, that's always the best way to make sure I have a bit of peace and quiet while I'm doing my DevOps stuff here for you. I hope you're doing all right, and I'm looking forward to 90 minutes of productive work. My last session on Thursday night was a bit chaotic, especially because I had to rush to get it started, and even that didn't help, and I was starting late, and music levels were too high, and all sorts of stuff went wrong. However, I did make progress on my mysql cookbook, and today I got the test suite running, and everything seems to be working, so the basic cookbook functionality seems to be done. Now it's time to refine things, and that's what I'd like to do today. As always, I love if these sessions are interactive, so don't hesitate to send a chat message if there's something you'd like to ask, if there is anything you'd like me to explain, even if it seems kind of obvious, please do so. I love to see people learn something or get ideas from the stuff that I do. So yeah, I'll very much appreciate it if you get into a chat with me. Of course, you're free to lurk as well. That's not a problem either. So, okay, I guess we can take a look at how things are working at the moment and work from there. Okay, so that's the current test suite for this cookbook. It has 4 different test suites built in. One is for the client installation, one is for the mysql 2 Ruby gem installation, one is for the basic server installation, and the 4th is for installing a server where the mysql data directory is not in the default location of var lib mysql. And I've seen this whole test suite running earlier today, running successfully, that is, and I'm very happy about that, because I'd say a week ago I was still full of doubts if I would be able to make this work at all, but well, I probably was just afraid of the effort it would take. It didn't take too much effort, not as much as I had feared, so let's finish this. Finishing also means that the test suite also runs in our GitLab CI system, which it doesn't at the moment. I've just pushed my latest changes, and GitLab CI told me that there is no Vagrant installed, and that's correct, and I'm not going to install Vagrant. I am going to use the Kitchen Docken, which uses Docker as the test platform, and for that I'll have to add a kitchen.docken.yaml to the whole stack here, and I'll copy that simply from another cookbook that we have and that we are working on at the moment, so, and which doesn't at least in this branch, doesn't have a Docker test suite as well. That's strange. Let's see where we have a kitchen.docker.yaml. It's the other way around. Wait, what? But thankfully we are in a fully committed branch, so wait, no, that can't be. Find, oh yeah, of course, if I'm searching for hidden files, I should use the -h option. kitchen.docker.yaml, here we go. And which one am I going to take? I'll take the one of Chef Freistyle, because that's pretty recent as well. Okay. So let's check how things are looking here. We have Docker Chef version 13. The usual stuff that we need with Docker, and we don't want to support Ubuntu 14 anymore. And in this case, I think Ubuntu 16 has systemd as the PID one. Come on, is that correct? Let me check. Kitchen Docker Ubuntu 16. Yeah, bin systemd. So this means that if we launch a new shell here and set an environment variable, export kitchen local YAML equals kitchen Docker YAML. This will tell test kitchen that if there is a kitchen.docker.yaml, it should read this file as well, not only the kitchen.yaml. And settings in this file will override settings in the global kitchen.yaml file. That allows us to only specify the driver-specific stuff that really is related to the Docker driver here. So we set a driver, we set a transport that copies file into the test container, the provisioner that sets up and runs Chef, verifier is inspec, and I have to define the platforms which we want to test, because we have platform specific settings here, mainly which Docker image to use. And this simply complements what we already have in the .kitchen.yaml, where driver, provisioner, verifier, platforms will be ignored, but I don't have to redefine the test suites in my Docker file, and that's pretty nifty. So let's give this a spin. If I do a test kitchen test, this should use Docker now as our test environment. Yeah, and you can see it's creating containers. So it's not Vagrant anymore, backed by VirtualBox that spins up real virtual machines. Now it's Kitchen Docker spinning up lightweight containers. And we run into apt issues again. That seems to be a common thing with the Docker containers, where they are not keeping up with the Ubuntu apt repositories, and that's why I'll have to add the apt cookbook to my test run lists here right in front. So we'll do recipe apt in front of every test, which in this case is MySQL test client, mysqlx Ruby, and mysql test server. The MySQL test cookbook is included or nested in this cookbook. So under the test directory, we have a directory cookbooks where MySQL test is included. So that's a rudimentary mini cookbook that uses our mysqlx cookbook to set up a client or a server. And this apt default recipe that I'm running in front is just for plumbing and to prevent all my tests from failing, just because what's in the apt repository at Ubuntu doesn't match anymore what's stored in the container image. That being said, there might be a second option that I'd like to try, which wouldn't force me to change my test definitions just to work around the problem. The Docker driver allows me to run container commands when the container is set up, and this might, I think I've seen this in the Docker README somewhere, where we can run intermediate instructions, and that's based on the container platform image. So if I tear down everything, I should be able to start again, and Docker should execute these commands when it sets up its images. Maybe I should also delete the existing Docker image, and that I can I'll have to wait until these containers are destroyed. Okay, so let's clean these up. Let's start with this one. Can we actually pass them in one? Nope. It's not delete, it's RM. Then there's this 1604 image. Interestingly, there's another 1604. Test dependent child images. Okay. We'll have to look at that second. Okay. So, can I do a force? Oh. The 1.7. Let's see if how do I find a child image? Ooh, okay. I guess it's this one then. That's a kitchen image. It's a Docker image. Okay. That did it. And let's try another test run. You can tell that summer has arrived in Ireland from the fact that I'm not wearing a hoodie anymore. So I guess when it said building work image, that's where it hopefully executed my additional commands. At least the client image got installed successfully. And the test was successful as well. Nice. Looks like the additional Docker commands did the trick, which I really prefer over adding additional run list entries into my test suite, because it's a bit confusing for someone without this background to see an apt recipe running here, and it's also a bad example for people who will use this cookbook. It might point them into the direction that they have to add the apt recipe themselves when they use my mysqlx cookbook here, which is not the case at all. Yeah, nice. Installation works. Brilliant. Let me see. Let me take a look at something. I was wondering who was mowing the lawn outside, because my wife just went fetching our new lawnmower at the DIY store. This was the Ruby cookbook, a Ruby recipe, and now we're going into the server recipe, which is the most interesting of them all. Okay, since this is looking good, I'll go ahead and commit this. And push it so I can see if our CI system can use this as well. And we could watch it working parallel to my workstation here. Something broke. Okay, wasn't able to connect to the MySQL server through the local socket file. Okay, so here it created the grants file with all the system users, especially the root user that's here. Update MySQL user. I like random passwords where user equals root. And wasn't able to execute the MySQL command that then had read this file. Which might simply be because the system is not running yet. Yep. That's strange. Why did it work in my Vagrant setup before? I'm not that surprised because I removed a few restart commands. Let's take a look at the recipe. Here we do the preceding so that, for example, apt doesn't start this MySQL server right away when installing the packages. Then we set up the grants file, and this template resource that writes the grants file then notifies run for install grants immediately, and install grants then will execute the install grants command, which is in turn a method from a library, which simply reads the grants file. At this point, the MySQL server isn't running yet. But does it get started when it's installed? There's the installation. I guess we'll have to take a look at the preceding information, and that's mysql server.seed.erb. Let's close this, mysql server seed, and root password gets set. Start on boot is true. Looks like there's nothing that prevents MySQL from starting. Okay. Then again, I'm not sure why we have a problem here. So I guess it's a good idea to log into the image and see if we can find out why this socket file is missing. Let's start with the socket itself. Yes, var on mysqld exists but is empty. And there is no MySQL running at the moment. This looks as if there wasn't any error starting. Let's see if we can start it by hand. Yes, we can. It's just that we can't log in. Let's see if we can log in with the dummy logins that the cookbook created. So the password is I like random passwords. Yes. Okay. Everything is there that should be there. And at least now, I guess, the socket is also available. So the question is, why wasn't the server running at this moment? Let's see if I can scroll back and take a look at things here. Preceding directory creating. Created the grants file, but when it wanted to import it, the MySQL server wasn't there. Huh, curious. Looks like this is a difference between running things in a container and running things in Vagrant or VirtualBox. So just to be sure, I'll tear down this these containers here. You can name our tmux windows. So I'll rename this window. Let's name it Docken. And I'll rename this window Vagrant. And I run a test specifically for the server. Sweet.
Well, here goes nothing.
What I would try next is not to use this Docker image, but the plain and pristine Ubuntu 16.04 image. And I can prepare that by deleting what I already have from Ubuntu 16. So Docker image list, grep Ubuntu. And I guess this one here is what I'm looking for. Ubuntu 16.04. That's the ID, Docker image RM. Okay, so let's find out what we need to delete. Is there a way we can Docker remove image with child images? Let's try this. Still there are child images. Docker remove image Ubuntu 16.04. Oh, that worked. Nice. Vagrant is happily installing MySQL. Here the server gets installed. This is the app armor file. The grants have already been installed, and we've already successfully executed the test suite, and now it's shutting down the VM. So cookbook itself is working. There seems to be something wrong with the Docker environment, and make sure that's not the case by using this pristine image from the Ubuntu build system. So we run the same test kitchen test. Server Ubuntu 16.04. Can only assume that our CI run failed as well. The CI integration has been just added recently, and that's why there are so many failures here, because I simply didn't have the opportunity to fix issues like this. And this cookbook is basically my test case now for setting up the CI system so that everything is running, and we get a failure in the CI system, that this means there's an error in the cookbook and not there's an error in the CI system. Still doesn't work. Which is very strange. I'm pretty sure that I can work around this by simply pulling the service declaration up a bit, where we want to access the server for the first time, which is somewhere around here. Or even before that. All these configuration files can be written afterwards, because they trigger a restart anyway. So I guess the grants installation doesn't have to happen immediately anyway. That can be done afterwards. because in the preceding in the precede file we've already set the root password, so our normal accesses here that use this root password should be working, and the additional accounts that the grants file sets up, like replication, it's no problem if they get set up at the end. And then we have all these configuration files that get written, and they all trigger a restart, but Chef will do this in the end if we don't force it by this immediately flag. So there will be a final restart in the end that has been triggered a few times, but it'll only be executed once. Okay, let's see if this changes anything. That's something I really hate when that happens. So you get it running in a virtual machine, and then you run it in a Docker container, so it can run on a CI system, for example, where these virtual machines aren't available. And somehow it doesn't, even though it should be the same operating system. Therefore, the packages and services should behave identically. But a full Linux VM is not the same as a Linux Docker container. What I hate is that I now have to work around this fact. Because I only need this to run in Docker for my test suite. I don't want to run the MySQL server, for example, in a Docker container. Here we write the precede file, install the MySQL server package, and almost immediately after that we should run the service. Directories, enable start, and everything ran, and here's the final restart, which was successful as well, and the test succeeded. Okay. Okay. I can live with this. And so, what exactly have we changed? We changed the... Well, we could try and revert back to the Docker image. Not sure if I want to, actually. Yeah, why not? So let's try again with the Docker image now that we've changed the recipe. This is kitchen.docker.yaml. Okay, and just to give it a try, I'll commit this. Start MySQL service earlier, or define it earlier. This makes sure the service is running when we really is running when we execute when we want to execute SQL scripts. Let's push this and see what GitLab CI thinks about it. Here we are already installing. Nice. Oh, there's a deprecation warning. The service B running matcher is deprecated. So we should use a different one. That's interesting. Test. Integration server spec. Describe service. Let's see what inspec. Inspec service resource. What it does inspec want here? What can we test? Be installed, be enabled, be running. So it says exactly that. Maybe you should update your documentation, inspec team. Inspec service be running deprecated. What should I use? Good question. Let's agree to this. You should use be running, and that message is misleading. Well, thanks for checking. Okay, so GitLab, how about you? I would so love to see it running in GitLab CI, because that will mean that we can push all our changes to GitLab and get an instant, well, not quite instant, but a quick feedback if what we want to merge is actually working and has passed all our style and integration tests. it would mean basically that we have CI for our cookbooks. And I love having CI for my code. Still, we had a problem here. Return an error code. Errors were encountered while processing libbsd stuff. This error, I've seen this before. Cannot get security labeling handle. That's something about SE Linux, and that's specific to GitLab CI. Another thing that I don't want to spend time on working around. It actually downloaded the file and then it somehow had a security issue. That's not what I wanted. Cannot get security labeling handle. sysfs is a Linux in read-write mode. Remounting in the container as read-only will fix some of the issues. Huh. It is security handle, right? No, it's security labeling handle. I could try and mount sysfs as a Linux. That's really strange. Something like this. I'm curious if the container will start in the first place. Okay, it actually started. No, what? There you go. Container seems to be running. Okay, let's hope that my hunch was right. Nope. Still the same issue. I wonder if there's something in var cache apps that makes it break. Sys volume mount. Maybe we should throw this out completely and give it another try. Maybe I'm causing it myself. I can't imagine running apt in a single nested Docker container should cause problems on GitLab. That would be a known issue, wouldn't it? Wait. What's it doing here? Okay, it's trying to run the rest of the test suites, but they will fail as well. Okay, so this run is definitely broken, but we'll leave it alone and take a look at the new one. Okay, so I don't think that's something I'd like to do live. Now it broke completely. Because we couldn't even connect to Docker. Yeah, that's not something I'd like to do live. That's a complete waste of time for at least you as the viewers. So we'll postpone the CI setup for now, and I'll work locally from here on. What else do we have to do? Let's take a look at our issue where we track our progress. It's issue 404. So missing integration test is done. Grants SQL is a bad location. Use etcd mysql grants SQL. Yeah, so there are different locations in this cookbook, which I've forked from the community cookbook, where they use etcd mysql underscore grants. So they write the file directly into etcd, which doesn't make any sense to me. And apparently this node attribute doesn't even get used anywhere in the Debian cookbook, in the Debian recipe. However, that might be my fault because I've already removed that. But this node attribute should be used. And since this node attribute here is still on underscore, I guess I've dropped using it completely. Let's see where this is used, and what I'm going to do is I'll fix the, I changed this attribute to a mysql grants, mysql slash grants. If we have a mysql directory, we might as well use it. So that's Debian, and in the server Debian recipe we should actually use this here, and we are using the grants file method from the helper library. Okay, there I've overwritten this. I guess this should simply return node mysql grants, what's it called? Grants path. Oh, it's MySQL server grants path. And then we have it in server SUSE and in the server Red Hat Enterprise Linux recipe, where this node attribute isn't used as well. Okay, it's all very strange, but anyway, I actually like that. Like to have this abstracted away with a method, so that we can use grants file everywhere and only reference this node attribute once. This also makes typos much less dangerous, because if we make a typo with the method call, our tests will pick this up. If we make a typo in the hash key here, we'll simply get nil without any error, and I rather prefer the method not found error. So, in server Debian, this should be now fixed. Let's try this again. Now it's only in server SUSE. Server SUSE, where the grants path should be mysql/grants as well. I'm not even sure why this is set distribution specific. On the other hand, for Red Hat, okay, it's also set here. Nice. So now it's only referenced in the server Red Hat Enterprise Linux recipe, where it should be referenced as grants path. No idea what these separator comments actually do. They're probably for some editor and folding or something like that. Okay. Now that's fixed as well. And grants path, not France path, which should also be a great method name, but grants path. Here are the attributes. Yep, it gets set everywhere. And then in recipes, server windows, it gets used with a variable. That's not necessary if we have a method of the same name. So we can throw this out. Server windows. That's not... Oh, here we have node mysql windows grants path. We don't need that. We simply have to define it. So in our Windows attributes here, here's a grants path, and we call that mysql server grants path as everywhere. Maybe we should space these off. And I also don't understand why there are case statements with only one when. There are some very strange choices made by the original maintainers. So these are all MySQL server attributes. Let's put them in front. And then we have the Windows attributes. Windows. Oh. Actually, here. So, thing is, I've stripped this cookbook of all operating system platforms other than Ubuntu 16. That's why there is already still mention of MySQL 5.5. We'll have to add back the other test platforms, and then we'll see what where attributes are still need to be updated. Okay, so now let's do another search for grants path. It's referenced in the helpers library with the node attribute, and here is set them specific for the operating system. FreeBSD has its own path as well, and then we use our method in server Red Hat Linux, server Windows, and server Debian. Actually, in server Debian, it doesn't seem to be referenced, and in server Mac OS X, oh, that's Grant's file, that should be Grant's path. Okay. Which does remove this issue here, and recipes are running with Chef 13, and I'll make sure that this is still true. We're simply running our complete test suite here, starting with Rubocop for the cook style. Inspecting one file can't be right. That's because I've updated Rubocop earlier today, and we'll need an entry here so that it so the implicit checking of Ruby files has been taken off, and so we'll have to make this explicit, where we say, okay, wherever we have something that ends with .rb, we'd like to check that. And if we run rake Rubocop again, oh, and it's cook style. Now it checks 33 files, but it's all right. Good. Okay, I'll leave the vagrant test here running, and let's see. Yeah, we are at the point where we need to restore support for previously supported operating systems, which means re-adding support for Red Hat Enterprise Linux, support for SUSE Linux, and FreeBSD should also be quite easy, but Windows will be a challenge because I've never run or even tested a cookbook on Windows. But that'll be necessary, or at least worth a try, so that people who had been using the MySQL cookbook before it was turned into a library cookbook could switch to this cookbook here, and that's exactly the reason why I'm working on this cookbook, because I don't like the decision back in 2014 to switch the MySQL cookbook into a library cookbook. Just complicated things, and probably was the reason that the current cookbook now has, I think, more than 100 open issues. So I'll try and be a good maintainer and support as many operating systems as possible, starting basically with Red Hat Enterprise Linux and SUSE, so the two RPM-based cookbooks, and then we'll ramp up difficulty a bit by going to FreeBSD and then we'll see if the desktop operating systems, macOS and Windows, will be included as well. But since it's almost 5 here, and I'm almost at my 90-minute limit, I guess it's a good point where we can wrap up things. I'll see that this test run finishes successfully, but yeah. At least I've made some progress here, and the cookbook is working and is in a good state, and it shouldn't be too much of an issue adding the other operating systems again. And then I'll be able to finally publish this cookbook on GitHub, and maybe people will start using it. That will be probably the goal of next week's session. I'm not sure if I'll do a spontaneous session before Thursday. That's why they're called spontaneous. But I'll definitely do another live stream on Thursday, and probably on Saturday next week. And then I'll take a break because I'll be on holidays, spending a bit of time in the sun on Ibiza. And so, yeah. Regardless, make sure to follow my stream here on Twitch, so you get a notification when I go online, and also please follow my Twitter account @gviz. I'll send a notification shortly before I start streaming, so if you're interested in these kinds of things, please follow my stream, please follow my Twitter account, and you'll get notified whenever there's something to watch. And until next time, be it Thursday night at 8 p.m. British summertime or earlier, thanks for watching, have a great weekend, and take care.